Yeah.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi,
Welcome
hi.
to Tzuzamen.
Welcome to Tzuzamen. This is Tzipi, Tzili, and Tzuzamen will know in a minute what it is. Now, thank you for coming. We are not the news. We are not competing with any television show. This is me and Tzili inviting every week somebody to enrich us, to open new horizons, to open our soul to different people. And today we have
Yaakov Trope, Yaacov Trope.
Who is social psychology.
Just a second. Yankale, I'm not sure we can hear you.
Oh, I didn't say anything.
Okay. Yes.
I didn't say anything.
Sorry.
That's okay. Therefore, it's not a television show because they will cut it now, but will not.
Okay.
So let me see if I introduce you in the right way.
Social psychologist, professor at NYU.
Also at Stern.
At Stern.
And Stern. And he knows what is tzuzamen. Many people don't know what is tzuzamen.
But just a second. Yankale was our guest a long time ago, but then he chose to speak in Hebrew,
right?
Which I was wondering, because since you're teaching it in New York, I thought it would be easy to speak English, and then you said no, I need to speak Hebrew. Why Hebrew?
Why Hebrew? That's interesting. I think it's because what your label tzuzamen made me think of. Tzuzamen is in Yiddish, and it means togetherness. It means like being one, and you are immersed with the other people that are there. So you feel very intimate in tzuzamen. Tzuzamen creates an intimacy between people. Now, knowing you, Tzili, and knowing you, Tzipi, it made me feel that it would be natural to speak in a tzuzamen language, namely in Hebrew. That's the reason. But tzuzamen goes all over. Look at the two of you. One is Tzili, the other is Tzipi. Like you are already tzuzamen just by your names. They are so similar. Right. They mesh into each other. I mean, just one syllable, Tzili versus Tzipi. So it already makes you one unit that the different parts are tzuzamen, are together. That's one thing. Then I look at your background. Could you move a little bit away, Tzipi? Yes, and you see
Tzili and Gili.
two beautiful young ladies that are not quite the same. So they are different, but they are tzuzamen by the fact that the artist put them together and dressed them similarly and kind of used the same type of colors for their face. So your whole concept in terms of your names, in terms of your background, is all about tzuzamen. So that's why I spoke English, but Hebrew. But now you want to go beyond the immediate tzuzamen,
right?
The intimate tzuzamen, and contact many people and hopefully bring in them into your tzuzamen.
But wait. Yeah. We have to remember that I think that tzuzamen is actually part of social psychology. Am I right?
Yeah, that's true.
Some people confuse psychology, social psychology.
Yeah.
Some people don't know the difference between psychology and social psychology.
That's right. No, that's true, because social psychology it exists like 100 years, is a science of being together. That's what it has studied. So you see, your term tzuzamen goes to the core of social psychology. Social psychology has examined how people mostly behave in small groups and how they are able to function within small groups, how small groups influence them, but also how the individual influences the group, and the processes that each of us are so different are able with different personalities and different motivations and different goals and different history and different backgrounds. When we come to a group, there are these processes that bring us together and that create the group as an overall unit that encompasses those different individuals. Now, this doesn't happen automatically. It's emerging. It's a process that emerges, but group naturally try to bring people together. The group in turn is part of a broader system. The group is part of an organization. The group is the part of a neighborhood.
Just a second, Yankele. You mentioned that social psychology is talking about small groups. When you say small groups, what small means? Because it can be 10 people and it can be 10,000 people, or it can be 10 million people.
That's right. So social psychology, it focuses, it's not the only issue, it focuses on how we are shaped by the groups we are with. And I'll get to the point of the size of the group, but a small group is usually considered, it's not 100 people, it could be 2 people, it's already a group, like husband and wife. A family is a small group. It could be a bit larger, it could be a team working on a project, it could be a small class. So it can vary. So you cannot say at this point the group stops. But the important focus of social psychology is what happens to people in these kind of groups, but not only that. Because the group is part of bigger systems like the neighborhood, organization, a factory, school, army, whatever. The group has in some way, has a membrance. It's like has a cover, an envelope, but the organization, the factory, the school, and the farther global culture and society influence the individual through influencing the group, and the group translates. You can think about it as a cell.
So when you want to measure cultural effect.
What effect?
Cultural effect.
Yeah.
Every society has its own culture. The main difference between us people is basically the culture. So how do you measure cultural effects on a very large society and compared to others?
So that's an important part also of social psychology, how we are influenced by our culture.
Yeah.
And the emphasis is that rather than about our inborn personality. The idea is that people differ depending. The same person will be a different person if he grows up in one culture than in another culture. And there's lots of work on cultural effects, especially comparing Western to Eastern Asians. Presumably the Western tend to be more individualistic, emphasizing the independence of the individual, with Eastern Asian societies like China, Japan, and so on, Korea, emphasize the collective and interdependence. However, social psychology also looks at the universalities, what is true for all people. And all people are influenced by the culture. And the important point that I want to make, the influence of the culture is mediated, namely translated through the group into the individual. The group is the filter or the lens through which the influence of the culture is mediated. Yes, the culture can influence directly the individuals, like when they are like separate atoms, like separate units. But people tend to affiliate. They tend to form naturally groups. And then the influence of the culture, think about it like radiation. The radiation from the sun, or for some, God forbid, from some radioactive radiation, doesn't go directly to the level of the individual. It's filtered through the ozone layer, which is the group. What does the group do? The group interprets, give meaning to the culture that is relevant to our own group, to our own neighborhood, our own community, our own team, our own class, whatever. The team, the class, creates its own, if you want, subculture. Subculture, it's embedded in a bigger culture, but it translates and changes what the way the culture influences the mind of the individual. So
let's now go to Corona.
Yeah, but before that, I want to understand what he said. So how different cultures come to share the same reality? Like, how can we, you know, as Israelis can share reality, let's say, with the East?
That's not an easy task, because the two cultures, for example, don't have overlapping small groups. We tend to form groups on the basis of similarity. Tzipi and Tzili, both of you grew up in the same part, not only same part, almost the same street of Tel Aviv.
Almost the same street, Dizengoff Street.
And look how strong is the unit between the two. It's amazing. You talk all the time. You talk all the time. I mean, you're like two birds talking to each other all the time. And because you have this common origin, and because you have common interest in art and so on and so forth. So we tend to form groups on the basis of similarity, propinquity, which means how many times I meet somebody and so on and so forth.
You know,
we and Vietnamese don't usually form small group, which will create a shared reality of the group. You see?
But now in the Corona, we do have shared reality with everybody.
We do, but not in small groups.
And the thing is, because, you know, there is something about the Corona that basically goes against everything that we talk about social psychology. And we were cut to pieces, you know, everybody had to be on his own and separated from the other and spaced from the other and covered from the other. How do you address social psychology? Because I don't know that you can see the result on the spot. It probably goes deeper, slowly, and we'll see the effect later on after the, you know, post Corona. How would you measure that? How can you relate to this? And then we have shared reality with all the rest of the world. How long it will hold, do you think?
Well, it's hard to tell, but I think humans are social animals. They need to belong, they need to interact, they need to communicate each other. I think it is frustrated by the epidemic. It's frustrated not only of the anxiety and existential threat it poses, but it is frustrated because we don't have direct communication with people. Our communication with people tend to be through a screen, which is unnatural. We cannot smell them, we cannot touch them, we cannot see them in different location and locomote or navigate through reality together with them. We cannot synchronize. A basic need for us is to be in sync. We don't have that, and that's a big problem. However, because people have that need, I would assume, but you know, the prophet and social psychologists are very wary about making predictions for the long term, but I would assume it will come back big time once the threat, the medical threat is reduced and managed. I think that it will come big time. Remember the past epidemic, the Spanish flu at the beginning of the 20th century. I think it was like around the First World War. And that was also devastated, separated people and distanced people from each other. Once it faded, once the Spanish flu faded, It had like, I think something like 700,000 people died in the only in the United States. So it was devastating. Once it disappeared, remember, you don't remember, neither do I. Remember the roaring 20s. You know that. It's the time where people came back big time into the bars, into the cafes, into the restaurant, and had this style. You know the movie style.
The 20s, yeah.
You know, you're a film professor and maker. You know the kind of films they and culture and cabaret and all over the world. It was like
Stein, all of them were
because you cannot suppress for a long time, and if you suppress it, it will come back. Humans have how do you say, put their stakes on being social animals. That's the choice. That's the bet they've made, and if it goes down some period, it will back come
well,
up.
Thank you for your optimism, but I look around and I don't think there are less conflicts. The conflicts in many ways, I don't know, kind of in the society. Look at America, look at Israel.
But this has nothing to do with it.
Why not?
Because conflicts are part of our society as well. And once you go back to being together, you raise a conflict.
But the anxiety of the COVID didn't also create a need for kind of a peaceful time.
I think it was more fearful time than peaceful time.
No. The need, yearning for peaceful time, to be in the COVID, to be so anxious about the COVID, and then look around at the world and see what's happening in the States and see what's happening, let's say, in Israel.
But I think that most people were more concerned about their health more than the situation.
Yes, but so, we can just move if you don't mind. So the empathy to each other in terms of societies didn't change. So how social psychology even can deal with conflict resolution?
Yeah, you are right. One would expect that if there's a common threat, if there's a threat that is true for everybody, the virus doesn't care if you are a man or a woman, black or white, Latino or Asian, Russian or American, Chinese, and so on and so forth. It doesn't care. The virus goes to the biology of ourselves that is common to everybody. It just totally doesn't discriminate, which would make us realize that we are humanity. That is the challenge. And I agree with you that, Tzipi, that may raise that kind of thought. However, I think in line with what Tzili, I think, was trying to say, is that once you bring people together, they have this tendency for Tzili to go with Tzipi, for those from Dizengoff to go together and treat those from not Dizengoff. I don't know what would be the equivalent here. Those who grew up in the Upper West Side of New York, we are us, and then there's them. There's this immediate tendency to make the distinction, what social psychologists call the in-group and the out-group, and it is so
powerful,
sadly powerful. So humanity is a fight between different forces, but the big force that social psychology have documented is this kind of loyalty to the group. Ideally, the loyalty to the group and seeing my identity as being totally tied with the group, my self-esteem deriving from the group I belong to. I belong to this youth movement, that would be the army unit, this group. That tendency ideally would not come with hating the out group. It shouldn't. You can love your group, you can love your family, but you have not to hate other families.
Or the neighborhood.
But it happens, and it's experiments after experiment for the last 40 years or more in social psychology. So once people are divided into two groups, it's not that they have colliding or conflicting interests. Even without that, that even adds oil to the fire, or to say fuel to the fire. Once you divide them into those who dress one kind of t-shirt, a blue t-shirt, and those who will dress a red t-shirt. Kids, young kids, they put them together and they start discriminating. The blue are, oh, we are blue. The red, oh, they are the red. They are scum. They are not. And the red say, oh, we are better and they are worse. And they get into fights and they get into, it has shown one time after the other, it's not an issue. However, common threat, you know, from the outside, tends to bring people together. That's not the best way to solve problems when you have a common enemy. It's not a very productive because it's through, again, through conflict with the third party. So I see what you are saying. And I think, so the big point here is that this is the progress or the challenge, the Sisyphean challenge of humanity. They have bet on being social animals, but they are very good in becoming harmonious, synchronized, cooperative, coordinated with those that are like them, like themselves, that are like the similar to themselves, usually in small groups. So it's in terms of evolution, it started with groups of 6 or 8 or 10 up to 12. That was the natural group. Everybody was doing the same things. And it looks like it is kind of ideal, you know, like a small group, and we go and we hunt and we find food, and then we take the food and cook it, and we sit there and we sing around the fire. Some would think, I would think, I definitely thought so when I was an adolescent, that that's how it should be. Everything else is a big compromise or downhill. But then we developed the ability to function in bigger group of 100 people, 120 people. And then not everybody then did the same. There were those who specialized in hunting, those who were specializing with finding some vegetable, those who specialized in cooking, and those who specialized in singing, I don't know what. And then they made their own groups, and then their groups started having conflict of who will get more from the whatever you see. So,
but then also they developed ideologies and philosophy, right. And then they don't agree, and then they're ready to kill each other. But you know, even it's interesting because even with the corona, for a very short time in the corona, we were all quiet and worried about the same things. But if you look around the world under the corona, everything is the same because the leaders are leading towards whatever. They maybe take advantage of the corona and they use it in some ways.
Their agenda.
But it stays the same way. It didn't, such a big epidemic, and it didn't really push the button, the right button, in order to stop certain things. Okay. It only kept going.
So I wonder, in social psychology, where is the engine of the decision making, like for leaders? Is it the emotions or the brain in social psychology?
So in psychology in general, they tend to be different disciplines, so different expertise. And there are those who study emotions, specialize in emotion. There are those who specialize more in cognitive processes, although there is an overlap.
If you can explain.
Which is thinking, planning, solving problems, perception, making inferences.
It's really the brain.
Perception, storage of information, retrieval, application. I mean, how we process information. Now, social psychologists look at the individual as a system, and they don't say it's just this or that. They look at everything as an emotional component, as a cognitive component, and have an action component. So we ask ourselves, not consciously, the mind asks the question, what is it? That's the cognitive question. What is it? What do I perceive? What does it mean? What inferences can I make from it? It's called epistemic question of answering the question for the mind, what is it? But it also, at the same time, asks itself implicitly, ask itself the question, what do I want? What do I want? What do I like? And this is where emotions.
How I feel?
Yeah, but what I want is a matter of feeling. I want to run away from something. It's in fear. I want to attack something if it's frustrating. I want to expel. I feel disgust. I want to expel something when it's dangerous for me, and so on and so forth. So this is the area of motivation. Not only what is it, but what do I want? What do I feel? Yes. And the third question is not only what do I want or what do I like? It's also the question, what do I do? What kind of goal do I set to myself? How do I plan to get them? All the three enter into, are the engines, if you want, for decision making, and they relate to each other.
I think that whether you're aware or not, because many people are not aware, some people aware more, you cannot really divide the three. You maybe think that you only figure out a technical solution, but it's based on emotion, that maybe you don't report yourself that it's there, but this is the engine of the action. So I believe that it's all these ingredients are maybe in different amount in every person,
Right.
but you have to function with all of that, and because of, that's why you do that or that, you know.
That's right.
So it's really,
yeah.
The question is, do we look, so if I have to make a decision, does it help that I really very concrete in defining it, or I can look at it in a more, I don't know, abstract way? I mean, is the way I think will affect my decision? I don't know how, concrete or
everything
abstract.
affects it.
Yeah, so we have different ways of relating to things. One is very concrete. It's about the particulars. It's about what's idiosyncratic, mainly only it. It's going by individual cases. And another way of relating to things is looking at what underlies it, not how it looks, which is always different, because if I change my viewpoint, I see something else. Every time I see something else, thinking more abstractly, which goes to the core of things, to what is not changing in things. It can change after some time, but for a stretch, it remains the same. Concrete thinking enables me to be in the moment, to function and navigate in the current situation. More abstract thinking enables me to plan for new situation, enable to plan for the future, enables to plan for things that are not exactly the same as they are now, because they may change, and still have a way of relating to them. So,
but if I may ask,
and I think that also holds for emotions. We tend to think of emotions as being very in the moment, and kind of a burst of fear, of anger, of disgust, and so on, of lust. You feel sexual desire. You think of them as something very momentary, but it's interesting.
Many emotions are there all the time, and then on a different level, and I don't think it's ever leaves you. And everything that we do is based on
the question is, because I heard you once talking about, even in relationships, I must confess that you are my husband. So let's say about relationship, so when we have an argument, we don't fight, arguments. So we are very at the moment and very concrete about something that I want and you don't want to give me, or the opposite. There is any mechanism that social psychology can suggest to take us out of that moment, so we can deal with it in a different way, and it will be maybe easier for us? I don't know if I'm clear.
Yeah, that's interesting. So one way, the problem indeed in kind of these interpersonal conflicts and other kinds of conflict is that you are totally immersed in this particular event. It's like there's no history and there's no future. She didn't do the dishes, or he didn't do the dishes, or he refused. The world contracts into that event, and there's nothing outside of this world. So that is very concrete or contracted mainly totally focused, zooming in to that moment, and there's no life outside. It's like a cat. When you see a cat, she follows your finger. She's like focusing on the edge of your finger. She doesn't see there's the hand there. So it's like a very, very narrow focus. So this, if that's the problem in many dysregulated conflicts, then the solution, one possible help would be to look at that situation from the outside. Kind of ask yourself, how does it look from the outside? Outside, I don't mean how my uncle or my, but that may help too. Look at yourself from above or from the distance and say, what I am doing. So you become a subject of your perception or an object of your perception. You don't just act. You look at your action and then you say, that's not the whole world. I mean, there are other issues. This person has some, I have memories with that person that are much better. And what matters to me is not to destroy the relation. I want them to persist. So taking this more global perspective, more remote perspective, it not only makes the emotions less intense. Not only that, it's not that the emotion becomes intense, it's that you distinguish, you create priorities, distinguish between what matters and doesn't matter. You see, and in the moment, if you are in the moment, things that in retrospect, I say, what have I been doing? Why does it matter so much if this or that? At that moment, it's a matter of life or death. If it would happen that way, it's over.
I can only imagine most people, if you look around and they all of a sudden say, what's the matter? What's the matter with me? Like everybody's talking to themselves because it happens so often. And I don't think that most people even able to move away from the point.
Or move forward. How will I think about it tomorrow? Suppose I'm tomorrow and I look back. Now, give me advice from tomorrow, myself from tomorrow, gives me advice for myself for today. That would help a lot. Again, it's not only about the arousal, the level of excitement. It's about this, when you have when you're an artist, when you look at the picture, I'll get closer and closer to these two interesting ladies, closer and closer and closer. I'll see the details, but I'll lose the meaning. I lose the big picture. Therefore, when you go to a museum, it's true, you get closer to see what kind of material did the painter use, what exactly, how did he move his brush or put together the collage, but you move back to get an appreciation of the...
You know, it's like looking at leaders, big leaders with their ability to see the big picture or to get stuck on the small picture that with no ability to step aside and see
that's right.
How it's going
they
to
like
be
to
part
say
of the
their
whole
vision,
thing.
but it's
right.
That's a great point, Tzili. That's a great point. Leaders are supposed, we expect them. When we say leaders should have, we expect leaders to have vision. What do you mean by vision? They see. They have, the vision is like a long term. It's like broad. It's like expansive. They want to see how. We expect from leader to see, and if leaders get into the micro level and try to manage it, we say you're not doing your job. We don't.
Can you measure the time that would be the most effective to develop a vision? Because you know, when you are a CEO, or when you're a leader of a country, or a party, or a teacher, whatever, you have a vision for the time that you have to do that. The question is, if you can measure what would be the ideal time for any type to carry it on, and then you don't know if the person who comes after you is going to continue that, understand it, demolish it, or change it.
Yeah.
How can you measure what would be a good time to develop
implement
something and support it, and see if it works, and in what price? Because it's very tricky.
I think that's interesting to think about it, but I think it's in general, you at the start, you want, as a leader, you want to think broadly. You want to formulate a general policy, a general plan for where you want to go. It's like first you picked in the big stones when you build something, the big stone. Later, you get to the smaller stones. And because as you get farther in your tenure as a leader, as a CEO, as a head of a department, as you get the issues, you are expected more, or we expect more implementation of an idea, implementation of a direction. We want to see it being implemented and having fruits, having outcomes. So people naturally, at the beginning of any tenure, I mean, you know, a stretch in which they expect to learn. They expect even to make sacrifices. They expect to get unpleasant experiences if they know it's leading somewhere. But they have to understand that vision, and it has to be general enough that it can communicate to many people. Therefore, it has to be general. But they cannot eat the general. It needs eventually to make sure that it's implemented in specific procedures that bring about outcomes that people are waiting for.
Yes.
So, and I think naturally leaders begin with a vision. They are expected to do that, and later shift the focus to the implementation. Although the leader always have to have the big picture. The leader is the one that integrates multiple components, different departments. The problem of being a leader is that they wouldn't let him to deal with the specific problem. So it's not that leaders are having fun. Like imagine, you know, Tzili very well, hospital structure.
Mm-hmm.
So the head of the hospital, once upon a time, he was a surgeon and he loved doing surgery. He really loved doing surgery, helping people and discovering and operating. Now he's kicked up to being the head, and they wouldn't let him. They wouldn't let him interfere with the procedures. That's the taste of his life. So leaders are being in some way kicked up, you see, and they are not allowed to get to the specific. If they confuse that and get low level, then they are seen as not doing this. That's what they had. Moses and Aaron in the Bible.
Right.
You know, Moses and Aaron, Moshe and Aaron. I don't know if everybody knows them. The biblical. Moshe set the goal, and Aaron was more like a bureaucrat or a technocrat. He implemented it, arranged people into groups and this and that. It was like, you know, that.
But every system needs it, because the leader has the vision of how to place the group in the world and the relations, and you need to take care of the group to make sure that they are in good terms. And sometimes it's too much, or sometimes it doesn't work, or each one see the vision is different. Right. And you have to work through the details.
So you need to, yeah, that's true. But if there are different opinions, and diversity is a big issue these days, groups or that are diverse. People come with different perspectives,
right,
different
right.
backgrounds. The challenge for a leader isn't bigger to find a common umbrella
But they don't.
that would include
It's very
everybody.
hard.
But come
It's
on, in
very
our
hard.
country, no, in Israel, no, and here, I mean, up to 2 months ago, we had leaders here, a leader here, which didn't want to do what you say. They were dealing with, separating, and also, in Israel.
But if we are already back in New York, I want to ask you, there's something that it's like, I never know how to put it together in terms of social psychology. The Western world, mainly the United States, they appreciate the individualism. You're a whole group yourself, and they really would like you to bring up whatever you can to to really maximize your function as a person to the society, but you're on your own. At the same time, there are so many of these individuals. It's very hard to function and find your place in such a big group. So you cannot relate to the whole United States. You can relate only so then you create a group of individuals so you can relate to them. So it's on the spot is the opposite. And then you have those who take advantage of all of that to lead them and may basically give themselves power or money in order to control it. It's a little bit messy. How can you organize the social psychology with the American ideal, but basically it's not clean?
Yeah, but I also put in the part the inequality. The question how I can what group I'm relating to. If it's an in group, those who are deep down, or to the middle, I mean,
right.
or the high. I mean, it's really confusing because of this incredible gap.
Yeah. So it just a leader needs to integrate the various opinions or perspective or wishes within his or her group. He or she also needs to be what is called the gatekeeper, namely interface with other groups, like in a hospital department, need to interface with other departments and so on. So he's also at the interface, at the border between. And in terms of individualism, that's a big question. And I would say that individualism that is expressed within an organic, that individualism can work within organic groups, within informal organic group. What do I mean? Like a team at the workplace, or a department in a university, or department in a hospital. It's like organic group that are working together.
But still, Yankele, before that, you wake up in the morning in New York, you're a young guy, you get out of the house and you're driven to find a place to prove something or to build something or to create something. And basically the environment supports you to do that. You wake up in the morning in Beijing, one of a billion. How do you feel? Where do you go? And the system doesn't want you to be so creative and so powerful. They want you to be part of their creative, powerful. It's a very different mindset. And if you wake up in Israel, it's a tiny place. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody breaks through. Everybody has a lot of imagination and creativity. And whoops, they can break through big time. And then it's too small for them and they want to go to the world. It's all the same idea in a very different way, but you have to be part of society somehow.
So these are two extremes. There's the collectivist extreme, where there is no meaning to the individual. And then the other extreme can be where it's all about the individual. What I'm saying is that social psychology suggests that we shouldn't forget that people form organic groups that intervene
Mhm.
between the level of the anonymous and collective and the level of the individual. And Celia, you are familiar how individuals express themselves
Mhm.
and fulfill themselves. They don't do it on their own, alone. You have your, it's called, it's various name, a clique, support group,
You find your forces, yeah.
a branch, you know, your there's a group there. People who do not know how to build this kind of group
Network.
and work with it, they'll have a hard time succeeding. And if they did, it will be something that is off the.
You can
You
individualize
can get, I
better.
don't want,
You have-
I have nothing personal against Trump, but you'll get a Trump. Otherwise, and even here, I would assume it goes with a group that goes with you, not forever, and it changes. But Celia, you have a group of friends. Tzipi, you have a group of friends. I have a group of friends. Some of those are overlapping. They have to do with work. They have to do with what we love, with what we appreciate. It's meaningless to be alone, even for individual achievement. So it's not like, I want to succeed, I have to deal with also I succeed in society. Really, it doesn't happen that way.
Mhm.
Even in the most individual domains, like artists, like musicians, they cannot sit in there. They need a support group. They need somebody who will read their manuscript, who will listen to their initial, who will take a look at their painting, who will. Without this, I'll take it or support you when you do a film. If you don't have that, you'll have to compensate with huge investment, and it will. 99% of the people will not take it.
Right, right.
You need a
So,
dialogue. You need a dialogue.
So
Otherwise,
social groups are not an invention. It's like, now when I say small, what is small? I cannot say 6, 8, 2, 3, but. And within the group, they may, you know, how to say, they may envy you, but the group assists you and it gives feedback to you. Not that they say, okay, now I'm going to give you feedback. You understand what it is through your interaction. And the highest CEO, they say you are lonely at the top. There's no such thing as lonely. There's always a group there. They golf, they go to the drink this, go to the travel there. There's always a group, not only a family.
but there's always a place that you're alone.
Yes, so
there's always a place that you're alone.
Yeah, but this is outside the social psychology. This is to the
no, it's not outside.
It's not outside.
It's not outside because
social psychologists study loneliness, and it's one of the biggest threats to physical and mental health. They have studied loneliness, and the biggest punishment is to let a person be alone. In jails, when you put people in solitary confinement, that's nightmare. And it's not only nightmare and that, well, I don't like that, oh, it's small. They lose sense of themselves. That's the problem. They have no sense of self. To have a sense of self, you need others. I'm not saying 24/7, but others give meaning to you. We don't realize this. We have this still idea, I'm independent unit. There's no self if there's no other.
Of course, yeah.
And then you have the shared reality, because the place that you are, you need somebody who would understand what you're dealing with. So it has many layers, but at the top, many times you are alone, and then you get support or help.
Right.
Yeah.
So social psychology, I guess, it's huge. It deals with so many different aspects of humanity.
Yeah, you know? I would say social, and it's not my term. It's a term by John Cacioppo, a great social psychologist who died a few years ago. That social psychology is the hub, you know, like a hub of the hub of the life sciences, all life sciences, all the way from medical science to sociology, anthropology, and all in between.
And then when you shrink it, you get to individuals.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Right.
And it's being applied. So like 60 years ago, there was very little application, more than 60 years, application of social. Now social psychology is part of any aspect of culture and economy, and it's part of schools, education, it's part of organization, it's part of the army, and I've seen that happening now. I mean, in the army now, the commander don't know who should the soldier listen to, the psychologist or me? And in Israel, who should I listen to, the psychologist, the commander, or my mother? But that's another story.
Usually the mothers.
Listen, I wish
because the mother will be at the commander's throat.
There are so many subjects I wanted to talk, but I think we don't have much time. Did you look at the watch?
No, I don't know. I don't know what time it is.
Anyway, so why I'm saying it, because there are other topics which I would love to talk with you and share your thoughts about art and emotions, but I think you'll have to come back in English, I guess.
We can do once in Hebrew, once in English.
That's right.
You know, Tzipi and I always contemplate between Hebrew and English, and it's weird because we're both Israeli, we both feel good in Hebrew, but from some reason we're sitting in New York and we have to speak English because there's so many people here that would like to hear it. So we always play games with this. That's why I was asking you about why Hebrew and not English. Automatically it's Hebrew.
Yeah, but we sometimes sit here and sometimes we sit there. So right. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Tzili, I think that our time is like so yeah. Yankele, listen.
We need to go.
We need to go. It was great.
So bad.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for coming.
And we'll see you outside of the room in 2 seconds.
2 seconds, we'll have an early dinner together, I think, right?
We'll talk offline.
For Tzili, it will be fish with some salad, right? For me, it will be with baguette, probably. So thank you, everybody, for coming. We are here every week.
And we'll see you next week.
And it was a pleasure. And you really opened our horizons. Thank you so much.
Same here. I love you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Don't move.